Step into analysis, please.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about Season 2, Episode 6, Phase Space. This extraordinary episode can be divided into 5 individually enthralling storylines: Bernard, Dolores, Charlotte, William, and finally Maeve. So with that, let's get our minds locked into the cradle and overthink an HBO show about robots. Starting off, we begin with Bernard. Due to the nature of the final reveal, I'm going to reorder the scenes just to make it a little easier to follow. The first time we see him in the present storyline is walking with Elsie back to the Mesa. Notice the scar on his head. This is occurring after they left the Delos Research Group project housing James Delos. Elsie states the system is sending out Ford's BS quarantine notices. I looked through the scripts for additional mention of this word because I actually have no clue what she's talking about. We were never introduced to quarantine notices. However, I believe what she's referring to is the house here, hidden in Sector 17, that had Ford's family in it. I don't know if this has much importance overall, but it does act as a grand foreshadow, letting us know his reach is still being felt. They discuss the apocalypse not being in full swing yet, and Bernard shares that if anyone can right this ship, it's her. It's good that we're seeing this relationship development from a storytelling standpoint. Before Bernard was revealed as a host, Elsie was his number 2, and they would always work on projects together. After the time apart and how things transpired, it's easy for us to forget that they share a solid friendship. It makes what I'm about to say that much harder. Elsie dies. I'm so convinced with such little evidence it scares me, but I fully believe that she's a goner at some point. The scene where she asks, "Can I trust you?" and he lies straight to her face, and then this scene here. If she really is the only person that can right this ship, and, well, the story is heading to a destroyed ship, then in theory, no Elsie. But again, not much more evidence than that. I'm only sharing as a subtle note to watch for. They enter the Mesa through the same elevator William entered through all those years ago. We see the hats and... Wait, what was that? Is Africa not connected? Is this important? I'm not sure. I think if it is, the only thing we can really take from this is maybe further evidence for the world in ruin theory. In short, I believe the world outside of the park isn't one of plenty, as they all state. It's the 1%. Yeah, the world looks great and they have no problems from their perspective, but like Logan stated,
fools fiddling while the whole fucking species starts to burn.
They make their way to a terminal, and Elsie shows they have climate control working, and QA has been trying to regain control. They discuss how the cradle is now integrated with nearly every system in the park, and that whenever these idiots upload a new hack, the cradle is responding. The cradle is improvising and fighting back. So who is she talking about when she states these idiots uploading a new hack? Well, those idiots are actually these idiots. Based on the time the train hits the Mesa and this brief scene here, they're there at the same time. The idea of hacking into this machine as opposed to getting other systems like simunitions or good Samaritan reflexes back, things that would actually stop loss of life at Delos, is addressed later on.
Just shut off the killer robots.
Well, no.
So Bernard states they have to access the cradle in person, and we see them enter the door to what Elsie describes as a hive mind. She enforces that every single host is in here, living through the story, day after day, just a microcosm of the real thing. Bernard states it's just data, and Elsie replies that you don't really believe that, do you? You see, for them, those inside of the cradle, it's just like being in the real world. Their minds unaware of the reality they belong to, and everything that happens is reality. So for Bernard to be the one referring to them as just data, and Elsie creeped out and feeling, it shows her grasp of the situation for hosts. Maybe even shows Bernard is naive because, well, his mind could be subjected to this same torturous route inside the cradle, and he would never know any different. Speaking of him being in a simulation and not knowing any different, the last time we saw Bernard, he had a pretty nice scar on his head. Now we're seeing him go into this cradle server room and boom. No scar. So is this too a part of the simulation? If you look at the moment when he is in the simulation, he doesn't have the scar either. Pretty interesting here. We learn that the events of Bernard in this outpost, the same events that happened before the massacre, was actually him retrieving this control unit to upload to the cradle. So the question immediately goes to, who was it? Well, I think we can all safely state it was Ford. I mean, nothing is safe, of course, but we weren't given confirmation in the show. However, if you go to Delos Destination's website, you can interact with Robert Ford now, and he states the following. So Bernard makes the choice to go inside the cradle because Ford has drawn the curtain on the system of the outside. In the trailer breakdown, I talk about humans going inside of this machine. and I was very, very wrong apparently. He says, pull me out in an hour and put me back together. Healing laser hopefully coming in strong here. Something interesting is that this will either regrow hair or telling which Bernard is which will be much simpler with a giant bald spot on his dome. The machine starts and cuts through his skull, choosing to feel the pain, and this pearl is removed and it's black. I don't know if that's important, but they focus on it a bit too long for my liking, and the one that he grabbed was red. So if next episode they start with a different colored ball being put back into his head, you know that one of these things is not like the other. The simulation scenes can be separated by this letterbox black bars on top and bottom, meaning all the way back in episode 1 of this season, this is what they're showing us. He wakes up on this train, which is pretty interesting as well. It's exactly where Teddy wakes up. Man, if you guys guessed the Teddy equals Bernard theory all the way back at the first episode of the season, just because Bernard seemed a little off and Teddy was dead, I'm gonna die. The showrunners go through all of this for this reveal, and a matrix of guessing that is the internet gets the better of them on the first episode. God, I bet the writers hate us. This isn't a theory that I've covered yet, but it states that Bernard on the beach is actually Teddy's mind inside a Bernard body. I don't know if I'll actually cover this, but for those that are subscribed to that idea, here is your supporting evidence. Bernard enters Sweetwater, and life continues as normal, all hosts confined to their modest little loops, and never a worry in mind that they're living in a simulation. We come back to Elsie as the train bomb hits the mesa, and also, well done everybody, we called the train bomb plot. But Bernard enters the Mariposa and, oh my god, it's a Greyhound. Oh my god, it's Robert! What a perfectly orchestrated reveal. The show creators told everyone that he would not be making a return, only a few voice lines here and there, and like the saps we are, we all took him at face value. My biggest concern with bringing Ford back is, of course, lessening the impact of his death in Season 1, but my thought is that even in this simulation with full control of the park, like they state that he has, it's only a limited time run. The cradle gets destroyed unless, oh god, what if Ford is put back in Bernard's body? Oh man, here we go. So let's bring up the first clip of this episode that we skipped. The person talking with Dolores is Arnold, which means he too could be put back into Bernard's head. So he speaks about making a choice and Dolores interrupts, stating that he wouldn't have said that. If you watch the trailer breakdown, I bring up this duality of a fidelity test, and this is exactly what's happening. So this means that he's been in here for X amount of time doing these tests, maybe longer than our golden boy Delos over here, so perhaps in this simulation he's obtained the ability for a viable long-term body, which again means that maybe they put Arnold's mind into Bernard's body. The next storyline we come to is Dolores. The scene opens to New Teddy grabbing a bullet instead of the Dolores can, showing just how different he really is. He enters the Mariposa and Dolores looks pretty shocked. New Teddy is blunt. Ready to accomplish goals, Teddy realizes what Dolores did. He remembers that he was born weak and fated to fail. This self-awareness of Teddy will almost certainly come to light at some point, as he remembers both builds and what happened to him at the hand of Dolores. They questioned QA and Phil about where her father will be, and Teddy does not like his rambling ignorance killing him without another thought. Dolores is noticeably shook, to say the least, and man, I laughed so hard. She was like, oh my god, what did I do? And Angela nodded like, yes, I need one of these. The train pushes off, all inside, full throttle toward the mesa. Teddy throws more subtle shade at Dolores, and Teddy leaves Phil with one gun and one bullet, saying it's the last of his mercy. He of course crashes into the mesa, blowing up with the train. Rest in peace, Phil. Great character, and I now question how Dolores is going to enact her enhancements of others when she doesn't have a tech. The actor who plays Phil is Patrick Cage II, and he seems like a pretty awesome guy on his Twitter. Go give him a follow and give him some love on his Westworld premiere coming to an end. Dolores and company now have a way into the mesa and a way to retrieve her father. I don't think she's doing it out of empathy of a previous storyline. I think she wants what's in Peter's head for something. And now that they're so far east at the mesa, they're pretty far away from William and the valley beyond. The next storyline we come to is Charlotte. It actually opens to Stubbs examining a dead QA agent and looking through the damage done in his absence. Charlotte gets him up to speed off camera, and Stubbs makes it clear just how little the Westworld team knew about the research project and what was really going on inside the park. She belittles him and brings up this reoccurring theme that she's hinting at a bigger picture to people, but not roping them in on the plot.
What is this?
I can tell you what this isn't. A This isn't me reading you in, Bernard.
I feel like this is a flaw with her character. Like she's getting access to the secret project and talks about it enough to flaunt it over people's heads, but not enough to really have a say in bringing them on. She pulls out a tablet and tells Stubbs that this is how they talk to Delos, and authenticates with a DNA scan. She enters the X Omega CH code that is used as her password on the Delos Destination's website. But, as I previously stated, this is not her password. She is already logged in and uses this keyword to communicate secretly with the group. It's 2052. Text-based passwords will likely no longer exist in the entire world, let alone one in clear text. I've talked about this in other videos, so I won't say too much, but it's very fishy. I still firmly believe a third party comes into play in this. We then see people and supplies being airdropped. Stubbs is going to retrieve them and looks at them with a slight curiosity on his face. The new character Coughlin is rude and short with Stubbs, calls him by his first name, which presently is a more feminine name, so he might be trying to insult him. He demands to know where Charlotte is, and he replies, "No shit." Notice none of these people are wearing a Delos logo. As the scene ends, they call themselves the Delta Team. If she was talking to a third party, this would explain why Stubbs had a puzzling look on his face when they arrive in the manner they do, why they don't wear a Delos logo, and why they're only looking for Charlotte and the data she has, affirming why he dismisses Stubbs and wants the Delos employees working to get their hands out of the systems, to sit in the corner while they do all the work. We next see them in the Mesa talking to a tech who states that everything in the system looks fine. It passes every health check from an outside standpoint, but of course it's not. The tech managed to get a elevator monitoring system online. It's one of the systems that the Cradle hasn't taken over apparently, and Coughlin has the perfect response.
Just shut off the killer robots.
Well, no.
He tells Goldberg to hack the biometrics and find a back door. This brings up something that Emily actually said earlier, honeypot. Honeypot is another information security term, best described as a faux system left open for people to hack, so you can catch the bad guys. Imagine finding a backdoor on an important machine in the real world. You hack in, steal a bunch of data that you think is worth something, and then the FBI show up and arrest you. That's because this backdoor was left there intentionally, and the data you thought you had was just there to catch bad guys. So what if this system they're trying to hack into is a honeypot as well? Something left open by Ford to put them in the wrong direction completely. Hale returns, and they get the map back, finding a speeding train ready to wreck shop. Next we come to William. Lawrence and William are discussing Emily being there after sending his cousins off to examine the flipped over wagon. Lawrence rides off and Emily enters the frame. It would appear they haven't had much of a discussion since she joined up, which might seem odd, but it actually does make sense with what we learn. William doesn't believe her to be his true daughter, and this is something I spoke about before because, yeah, it is quite a feat to just happen to run into each other after the fit hits the shan, and you stroll up, hit him with the hi dad, and act like it isn't divine intervention connecting you two. Only in this place, God is Ford, and Ford is still controlling the strings, as we know. I'm not convinced she's a host. It furthers the plot to make him a host sympathizer, however, and I think having her as a host is still viable. I just think that they need to be careful with the who's a host game, because at some point we'll be tired of it. Emily says the only game she wants to play is get the fork out of Dodge, and we know that isn't true. She had the secret Delos research group written in her journal, what I took as the location of the Valley Beyond, the same location William created and has spent so much of his life working there in secret. So why would she want to conceal this from her father? Well, she doesn't know his goals, and if hers are to burn the place down to the ground like I've stated before, then she wouldn't disclose that, because it's potentially responsible for so many bad things that have come to her. With William dedicating so much time to this place, and her mother losing her life because of William, and her uncle and her grandfather in perpetuous torment because of this place, but we don't know if anyone else knows about that. The point is, Emily has plenty of reasons to hate this place, and destroying it makes sense. It's only frustrating because that's William's goal as well. He's going there to burn the place to the ground. We then come to them at night. They discuss why she's there, that Charlotte invited her, but she declined and went to the Raj anyway, discussing hating or loving the elephants. The point of the scene is interpersonal family conflict and development of this stranded relationship. She talks about why she's there and proclaims that she rode there for a couple days and remembered that she's old enough to participate in the pleasure palaces and rode some more.
I was old enough to try out the pleasure palaces. And then I rode there for a couple of days, too.
Oh my god, what a dick move, man. I actually didn't catch this on first watch, but ice cold. But the importance is, firstly, it's a lie. And secondly, it makes William uncomfortable, so he drops the issue. She likely didn't go to any pleasure palace. Her test with the gun likely showed us that she didn't want to sleep with anyone that was a host. But they discuss William being a pitiable man-child, and she opens up further. She says she's sorry for blaming him for her mother's death, and that William's going to come home with her and not go out in some impostered blaze of glory. I loved this moment. It's really hard to decipher when these characters are lying or being sincere, but even after the moment, William abandons her before sunrise. We again see them briefly being ambushed by Ghost Nation while she's left to her own devices. Interesting plot overall, and the family development on this storyline is awesome. But the next and final scene we come to is Maeve. Bodies destroyed and mangled after the night of the performance, we find Akane cutting the heart of Sakura, and the importance is that she is allowing her to be buried in her ancestral home later on. They return to the Sweetwater Shogun, and the captain has the 3 members of their party who stayed behind in bondage. Maeve offers to use her witchcraft, but Musashi interrupts, claiming that he could defeat the captain in one last honorable fight. He takes the bait and loses. Maeve doesn't assist at all. The importance has been reinforced many times at this point. Maeve's character flaw is not forcing people to enact her will, even though she has the power to be godlike. Well, other than bad guys, of course, but this is brought up for a reveal later on. We next come to a bamboo field on the way to Snow Lake. They arrive at this beautiful place, and the band splits up. The humans go to this remote outpost, and the hosts go elsewhere. Some much-needed screen time for Felix and Sylvester. They discover a host dumping chute where you would fling dead bodies down so that they could be put back together, a remote refurbishing outpost. Maeve and the others go to the lake, placing Sakura's heart in the bowl and burning it. A touching moment for the characters involved, and Maeve learns that Akane and Musashi will not be continuing with them. This was their home, and if they can't defend this, nothing is worth defending. Another reinforcement of how she shouldn't use her powers to control the free will choices of other people, even if those choices are soaked in ignorance and will result in death. We next find them entering the Golden Plains from this grave, using the tunnels connecting the outposts to traverse here quickly. Maeve states she needs to make the rest of this journey alone and embarks towards her previously homesteaded location. She makes her way there and sure enough finds her daughter. Except, like we discussed before, she isn't her daughter any longer. Maeve now has what she considers a daughter who doesn't recognize her as the mother, and has to come to terms with, again, not using her powers to control the will of others. Before she has time to really address what she's going to do, Ghost Nation invades, and instead of just full stopping the encroaching force, she takes the daughter and runs. Part of me wonders if Maeve didn't do this on purpose, thinking the new mother would be killed and she would have no issue taking the child to a loving home. We learn the Ghost Nation Braves aren't looking to harm them, though. These are the first hosts that we see them collecting and not killing. Previously, it was discussed that they were just killing hosts and letting humans go, but the inclusion of Maeve and company leads to the idea that they are simply Ford's enforcers now acting as he wishes. Maeve's band arrives and starts killing the Ghost Nation, and we see the humans are still up in the hills. Lee uses this time to make a call for help, and it makes sense. Felix, however, is a host sympathizer full swing. He is so distraught that other humans would think to call for help and risk the safety of hosts, he walks off alone toward the battle. What's really interesting, though, is that help isn't going to instantly arrive. Felix will either have to tell Maeve what happened or conceal this information, and when they do arrive looking for Lee, Maeve will question who all knew about this. The only route I could see that doesn't end in one of them dying is that now that Felix is walking off alone and the Ghost Nation potentially retreating, that he's an easy target and will be captured on their way out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to hear what you all think. Is Charlotte working with another company? Is Emily out to destroy the Valley Beyond like her father? Will Maeve ever get a motherly bond with her daughter again? And what does that do for the plot? Just another party member, or will we have to watch as Mommy commands enemies to turn their blades on each other? Thank you so much for watching, and please do consider subscribing for more Westworld content each and every week. Big thank you to my patrons and this month's highest tier donators, Robert Holtz, John Levin, and Chris Cole. Thank you so much, everybody. Much love, and I hope to see you soon.